Hey fiddlers, welcome to today's fiddle video. Today we're going to be talking about how to back up a tune you've never heard before. Sometimes you will find yourself in a situation in the fiddling universe where people are playing a tune and you don't know it, but you want to contribute in some way and you might not be sure how. Sometimes the best thing to do in a situation like that is just to happily listen to the tune and maybe figure out some little bits of the melody. For example, in an Irish session, very often the focus is on the melody. There's not a whole lot of backup. But let's just say you're jamming with your buddies, you're performing with a band, or maybe you're in a session situation where you are welcome to play backup. Here are a few little tips I can offer. If you'd like a tutorial on how to play the tune that we're going to be focusing on as we discuss these ideas today, it's called the Connectman's Rambles, and you'll find a link to a tutorial in the description. All right, let's go ahead and talk backup. Tip number one is just to find the root note of the tune and just play that. Here is what that would sound like. Alright, so that actually can sound pretty good. But if we're going to play that root note, first we have to figure out what it is. There are a few different ways you could do this. You could even just ask people who you're playing music with what key the tune is in, and then you just play that note. For example, for D major, you'd play D. For A minor, you'd play A. But one of my favorite ways to do it is really just to play a bunch of notes, and you can start with your open strings and see which note feels like home. What just sounds good, sounds like sort of the bass note of the tune. So we landed on D. You might want to do that kind of quietly so that you're not making a big ruckus. Okay, so once you found that note, you can really just play that and chances are it'll sound good for a good portion of the tune. There are some tunes where that note is going to change as you go from the A part of the tune, the first half, into the B part of the tune, the second half. And as it turns out, in this tune, the Connectman's Rambles, in the second half of the tune, I feel like that root note is a B. Alright, tip number two is to figure out, is this tune sort of a minor tune or a major tune? And that'll help you figure out what notes other than the root note you might be able to play along with the melody, and it'll still sound good. That the root note of this tune is D. So are we thinking in D major or maybe D minor? Here's a D major scale. And here's a D minor scale. You might feel that the major scale is sort of a happier sounding scale and the minor scale is a little sadder sounding. You can even just listen to those first three notes of the scale and they might give you a sense, okay, is this feeling major or minor? Major, happy. Minor, sad. The question is whether it's a whole step, that's in the major scale, or whole step, half step, and that's in the minor scale. So you could look for that third note up from the root note and see, okay, is that part of the major scale or is that part of the minor scale? But you can also just go with sort of the feel of the tune, and once you've listened to a whole bunch of tunes, you can get a better sense of, is this major or is this minor? So is this A part major or is it minor? It's major. For major tunes, the three notes I like to use are the 1, 4, and 5 notes of the scale. Here's what I mean by that. The 1 is the first note of the scale, D. The 4 is the fourth note of the scale, D, E, F sharp, G. And the 5 is the fifth note of the scale, A. Or we could find those notes on the lower strings. play on the lower strings often when I'm playing backup, just to kind of stay out of the way of the melody. All right, so you've got that 1, 4, and 5, and as you're playing along with the tune, just maybe playing that root note, that D note, maybe you'll find there are some places of the tune where you feel like something else might work a little better. For starters, you can just try throwing in that 5 note, so the A, in those places where you feel like maybe there could be a different note. Then you can try putting the 4 in there a few times. That 4 note is going to be the G in D major, and see how that sounds. There are often a whole bunch of different combinations of those 3 notes that would work well for a tune, so you can find your own way. Although it's good to listen to the other backup players if you're in a group setting, just to make sure that you're meshing with what they're doing. Okay, so the 1, 4, and 5 generally are pretty safe notes to use in a major tune. But let's say you're in a minor key, and actually in the B part of this tune, I think of it as switching into B minor. In minor tunes, you may sometimes use the 1, 4, and 5, but the notes that I tend to rely on most are the 1 and then the 3rd note of the scale and also the 7th note of the scale. So in the B minor scale, you've got B, the 3rd note is D, and the 7th note is A. Again, let's say you're playing along, you're just playing that root note. There may be some times where you want to try something a little bit different. So the first thing you might try doing is throwing in that 7th note of the scale. So that's going to be actually a whole step down from your root note, and see how that sounds. Then you could try putting that 3rd note in, which is the D. Or something like that. Okay, to take things a little further, you could try playing double stops based on that 1, 4, and 5, or maybe that 1st note, 3rd note, and 7th note. Double stops are when you play 2 notes at the same time with your bow. So let's take the first part of the tune, which is in D major, and figure out what our 1, 4, and 5 chords would be. The 1 chord would be the D chord, because the 1 is the D. And to figure out a D chord, we'll start by playing a D major arpeggio, which will sound like this. That's the 1st, 3rd, and 5th note of the scale, and choose any 2 notes out of that to make your D chord. So we've got a D, F sharp, and A. Let's choose the D and the A. And you could do that on the lower strings, D and A. All right, that's our 1 chord, or D chord. How about our 4 chord, or G chord? We'll start by playing a G arpeggio. The 1, 3, and 5 of the G scale, and we'll choose 2 of those notes. So we've got G, B, and D. Let's choose G and D. Our 5 chord is going to be the A chord, so here's the A arpeggio. A, C sharp, and E. We can choose A and E, and we have our A chord. So we've got 1, 4, 5. So let's try those along with the tune wherever we would have used those 1, 4, and 5 notes. Now let's do the same thing for double stops in the B part. We start with the B minor arpeggio, the 1. Maybe we'll just choose B and D. Then we've got our 3 chord, our D major chord. And we can do the same thing we did for the D chord in the A part. Then we've got our A major chord. 7th note of that scale. And there we have it, A and E. So our 3 chords are B minor, D major, and A major. Now let's try those with the tune. Okay, tip number 3 is to play a rhythm along with the melody. Here it can help to figure out, are we playing a jig, are we playing a reel, are we playing a waltz, or something else? Tunes can have these different time signatures, and that will affect what you choose to do in the background. Connectman's Rambles is a jig, it's in 6/8 time, so we've got this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 kind of feel to it. So when you're playing along, you could go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Or if you're playing backup for a reel, things are going to change. Here's the Merry Blacksmith. It's a reel. You can think of it in 4/4 time, maybe 2/4 time, maybe 2/2 time. But the basic idea of it is 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Then you've got waltzes, which are in 3/4 time. You'll get this 1, 2, 3 sort of feel. Polkas in 2/4 time. 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2. There are of course other types of tunes, but this is just a smattering. You might play some different sorts of rhythms along with tunes that still fit into the same time signature. For example, for reels, instead of going 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, you could go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So one of the cool things about all of this is that progression of figuring out the root note, figuring out the other notes, maybe the 1, 4, and 5, figuring out the double stops, and then adding a rhythm is a good way to kind of arrange a tune. It sort of starts simple and then it gets more complex and maybe adds a little bit of energy to the tune. Alright fiddlers, that does it for today's video. I hope you found this helpful. These are just my thoughts from my own experience playing backup, but there is a whole lot more to say on the topic. Again, if you would like a tutorial on the Connectman's Rambles, that traditional Irish tune I used to demonstrate these ideas, as well as the Merry Blacksmith, which is another traditional Irish tune, it's a reel, you can find links for the tutorials for both of those in the description. Have a wonderful day and happy fiddling!